Well, it says to start the broadcast after.
Oh, it does. Okay, good. I just want to make. I don't know if the teacher, might expect it to see that in there. But if it says to start it after, we're good.
Well, hey, we did it. Woo! Now it's on the live.
Yeah, I heard you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, it just says provide a timestamp to your link so the instructor knows when the summary begins. Okay.
Yeah, we started half an hour ago. We were just had a whole bunch of spiritual thoughts, right?
Right.
No.
Okay. So we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the Brentwood Associates management and decide whether or not we should exit Zoe's kitchen now, and if so, what is the best exit option? And then, as a group, we should vote what Brentwood do with Zoe's kitchen. So who is in favor for an IPO now?
I'm for an IPO now.
That's what I'm for.
I don't know. I've been going back and forth. I think that they're better off selling it.
To a private party?
Yeah.
Okay, and Grizel?
For the last one.
Wait and grow the business? Yep. Okay.
Wait and
I can see some positives with those others too.
Yeah. It's interesting that they give us, I feel like there's 3 completely different options to do. I mean, that's what you want whenever you're deciding what you do.
Yeah.
Kind of makes it easier to figure out a plan. But they even could wait and grow the business and then do an IPO and then do a...
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, wait and grow and then go for an IPO. Because most of successful companies go for IPO, right? So it's a good way. It's a good way how to get more investments and progress. And
Okay. And I feel like the next question kind of brings everything further. So why? Okay. So for Adam and for Chelsea, why do you think why does Brentwood want to exit now? What did you see in the case?
Well,
why you would agree with that?
I didn't see anything that stated he wanted to exit now. Did anybody see anything that actually stated he did want to?
No.
I didn't see anything. I just think he was trying to figure out what the next option with the business would be.
Yeah, I think they always have to know what their plan is.
Yeah.
Their next step.
It said that the average hold period of Brentwood portfolio company was about 6.5 years, and I think that they were at that mark, so they were just wanting to, I don't know, they thought maybe it'd be a good time.
Yeah, they either send it to an IPO now, they have that 6 years to grow, or they sell and get out because their money is not going to be doing anything anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Well, not that it's not going to do anything, but that's just their plan.
Griselda, why do you think they should hold on to it right now?
Well, Zoe is a small company compared to the others. If they go as an IPO, they wouldn't attract a lot of investors. It says somewhere in the article that it will be one of the smallest from the IPO companies, and so that wouldn't attract a lot of investors. They would see that not very attracting. And I went to the financial sheets as well. You can see the net income from 2011 to 2013. It's minus. So they weren't doing very well in net income. And if we go to IPO costs, like legal audit and other stuff, for a company that has revenue over 100 million, which I think Zoe was kind of like hoping to go more than 100 million. The expenses will be like over $12 million. And so it would be a lot of money for them to spend to become an IPO, and this is a risk that might have them think and wait so the company may become more profitable, and then um, they decide which exit they get to do.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Those are good points.
So for this, I was kind of wondering, I don't know, did you guys kind of wonder what actually happened?
Yeah,
No.
I gotta.
I looked up
Oh, go
all
ahead.
of that. Well, I was looking up for evaluation just to see what they thought, what the internet thought, like, of the valuation of the company, because you can kind of find them from different years.
So what they do?
Well, I don't know if does the teacher want us to get into. He's
Okay,
mentioned a
maybe
few times how he doesn't want to reverse
say it
engineer
after.
things, but
We can say it after recording, I guess.
Oh, okay.
or whatever. I don't know how much.
Well, I just thought it was interesting because I found a couple of sites that like compared it to the ones that they were talking about in the study.
Hmm.
So let me just share that really fast, just to show how big of a difference it is.
And although I don't know that they actually said that they wanted to exit now, I do have a list of reasons why they probably want to, so I can share those when you're.
Yeah. So Zoe's Kitchen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is all. I don't know. I was kind of shocked. So their market cap for Zoe's Kitchen is 460 million, compared to Noodles and Company, which is 1.05 billion, which is a huge difference. And then same for Chipotle, even though Chipotle has gone down significantly, of 16.59 billion.
Wow.
But then again, oh, and Chipotle is just higher than all of them, I feel like. But I was surprised to see that that's the market cap for them. But then the sales per store was much higher than Noodles and Company. But then you have to look at the number of stores
Yeah.
for it all. And this is off of 2013. So this is in the case, or this is like the same time frame as the case study that we were given. But just like the difference between the two. And you can see all of the stocks on the side, what they're doing now. So
Is the Zoe Kitchen profit margin minus 3.1%, right? That's what it said. Uh, Can you pull out
Yes.
that sheet again, Madison?
what?
It's up.
Yeah, it's up. Just click on her
Picture.
picture, and it'll freeze it there.
Okay, so minus 3.1% profit margin, eh?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they had been spending a lot on updating their facilities, making them more national or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, they say they needed an increaser.
It's a really good restaurant, though. I have one like a mile, not even a mile from my house.
Oh.
Yeah. My husband hates it, so we never go, but it's actually really good. He's like, I don't like this Mediterranean stuff. He's not into that type of food, but I'm like, it's healthy, it's easy.
Hmm.
You
I come from a Mediterranean country. I was
you get the real food.
I was growing eating like olives and olive oil and those kind of stuff, fresh vegetables, and so now like here in Canada we get mostly like imported stuff,
Mhm.
and they're not as fresh, but it's alright. I tell people here, you gotta try the real stuff, man. Come on.
I'm sure the real stuff is a lot better. It's just harder to get here.
That's what I feel like about Mexican food. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I thought that some reasons they might want to sell. I can kind of list those off maybe.
Yeah.
So their forward EBITDA. I'm not sure why it would be good because with their profit margin being bad. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but right now it looks good. Oh no, I'm not talking. Oh, not them, but everybody else. Maybe average noodles. Huh.
Yeah, those are just
Okay,
other
maybe I'm
companies like it.
right. Yeah. For some reason, I was thinking that theirs might have been decent, but um, and maybe it was. For some reason, I was thinking it was decent, and it's not
So
projected to be.
that's the earning before interest, taxes,
Mhm.
depreciation, and
Right.
amortization.
Yeah. But yeah, that is. Yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, right. So, anyway, their performance was great. I think he said in 2012 we had our third straight year of a double-digit same-store sales growth. So he says, I've been doing this for 15 years and you just don't see performance like that. This, particularly as a company gets bigger. So my thought was, if the company's going to get bigger and if he's concerned about making sure that he's giving a good presentation when he's selling this thing, now might be the time, because it might slow since it's been really good, and it might slow up, especially if they decide to grow it. And then they wouldn't be able to show the investors,
Hmm.
as good of material. He said the IPO market seemed to be finally gaining momentum. Um, they're kind of catching the wave. He said Agraville was also particularly encouraged by the fact that 6 restaurant companies had gone public since 2010, and with the 7th on its way. And all of those they'd been pretty successful. So there was kind of a wave they were kind of catching. He said that there's a hot IPO window. It said after the Great Recession, people may be looking for. Well, my analysis is that after the Great Recession, people may be looking for security, and with an IPO market that's picking up, and the fact that the company had it said a low sensitivity to economic cycles that other risk common to consumer business. If this is a low risk opportunity, and if the IPO market is starting to pick up, I was thinking this IPO might be doing well because people are kind of risk reverse. The Great Recession just happened. They're concerned about putting money back into the stock market, but if they see something that is secure, I was thinking it might be something people are going to be interested in. In 2009, they built it into a national brand. It now needed to grow, so obviously that would bring in significant equity. Funding would permit more rapid growth, and could provide a yeah. So although they could get some more loans from GE, he said that he was confident he could do that. I don't think that they'd get nearly as much capital. They wouldn't be able to grow it nearly as fast as if they did an IPO, and if maybe they kept a certain a certain amount of ownership if they felt like it was going to be profitable. So those are some thoughts on why I think
So
that.
here's my question about IPO though. So there are 6 of them going that had successfully done it in the last couple of years, and another one going in. So did they talk about, or do you guys know at what point is that market like flooded? Is there a certain point where there's just too many, or is that even a possibility?
I wonder that, but then there's always new businesses entering the market. I think the only way for it to be flooded, personally, this is my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is if too many enter the market at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Kind of like the froyo craze. I feel like it was kind of flooded, but then after it died down for a bit, because my dad was like, he was like, froyo, it always comes in and out, in and out, in and out.
It's all about branding too.
Well, and if you look at Exhibit 2, this is
Uh-huh.
restaurant APOs, and right now we're on the last bar, and that's nothing compared to some of the previous years, especially back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So
But there were a lot less of them, too,
yeah,
the
it's true.
restaurants that got public.
Or it could be that a lot of those restaurants were private back in the day.
Yeah.
So that would also be something to consider in the restaurant industry if there were. So what you mean flooded is in too many IPOs at the same time? Too many
Well, just
too
the
much.
same restaurant, the same,
Same
um,
thing.
yeah, the same. I don't know. Can't even think of what I want to call it.
Hmm. Well, if there were like 100 restaurants that went IPO at the very same time, that presented an IPO at the same time, there's only a limited amount of investors. I could see that
Yeah.
affecting it.
Okay, so and then he said Noodles and Company, they were just going or they just had gone into IPO, and it's the same sort of restaurant. So are people gonna want to invest into the same types of restaurants?
Um,
Um, I mean, depends on if people think they're really similar.
yeah. It says on page 4 that there really wasn't anything close to it, talking about Zoe's in the
Okay.
restaurant space on a lot of levels. Although they're kind of biased, they're the owners, so I don't know if the
I mean, the
market's going to
only
see
thing that I
that.
can see would be the same, um, like the same restaurant is that it's more of the nicer fast food.
Yeah, like a Panda Express and a
Yeah, I'd put it in the same
Chipotle and.
category as that. So like Chipotle, Noodles and Company, like that kind of a restaurant.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Not your fast food, but your
But you can go sit down in there and not feel all gross like McDonald's.
right.
Yeah.
Is this trend like these days that people go a lot, spend a lot of money on organic and healthy foods? So that can
This
be
is a
an
restaurant they would go to
yeah.
Okay.
because you can literally, which is something really nice when you're ordering. You can order online, but the order online you can get a meal for an entire family. Everybody doesn't have to pick a separate thing. You just get one of the family deals,
Yeah.
like chicken kebabs, and then there's like a side of orzo, and then there's a salad that comes with. So that part's really.
Okay.
It's like
So it's not.
$43 for a family of 4, but
Oh my gosh.
Goodness
I don't know.
sakes.
But if you broke it down for each individual person, I mean, it's going to be about that same amount anyways. It just makes it easier to order.
Okay. Well, I was for buying, selling it out because they're talking about Brentwood individually running. They're the management company, and I don't think that. I mean, they invested, they grew the business, they did what they were supposed to do, and now it's time to get out.
Hmm.
And like they said, it was much faster of a sale. There's not as much cost to it, so they can still have that attaboy, good job, you did good on their record, showing the growth of the company. Not necessarily that's an IPO, but they still did a good job and grew it.
I had a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Um, if it wasn't like if they exited through an IPO, um, will they find like will they have to find um, either loans or fundings to like cover their costs for the IPO? Like what was like
When they put an IPO out, the
it's
investors that
expensive
buy
too, right?
it's shares, so they're going to pay the money
Yeah.
to
I
them.
think it's taken off of the costs are taken is a certain percentage for the most part. I think
Yeah.
is taken off of what the investors pay in, so they don't. I didn't think they had to put in a huge amount? I mean, well, probably they probably did have to put a significant amount up front, somewhat, but for the most part, I think it came from the investors.
I think it just it's like instead of one big chunk, it's like a gradual from a bunch of different people.
They are going to have to spend chunks in terms of like hiring the people that they need, but that's not.
Yeah, I would put that
Huge.
in as a cost,
Yeah.
not like
Yeah, not the initial loan.
not for the stockholders' equity
Okay.
cost. That makes sense.
Because it says like the IPO option was the costliest of all exit options and carried by the far most execution risk.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be costlier because they'd still have to be associated with it
Oh yeah.
instead of selling it as one big chunk.
Yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah.
the shares they were selling, I mean, from what I saw, whenever they entered when they did go public, they were $15 a share. Now they're up to 32.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I was wondering about was this Jobs Act. There's a Jobs Act of 2012. It made the IPO option more attractive, it stated. I was wondering if there was anywhere in there, when it said Job Acts of 2012, I was wondering if that was exclusive to 2012. If they didn't use it later, would that still be around? And I guess I assume it would be, but I was wondering what you guys' thoughts were on that.
That's a good idea. Or good, I don't know.
It's on page 7, the very bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
The last paragraph, the passage of this Jumpstart Our Business Startup Jobs Act in April 2012 also made the IPO option more attractive. And I was thinking they probably put that legislation in there to try to jumpstart IPOs because the chart showed that the IPO market had pretty much been dead for a few years.
Yeah, everybody was scared of it.
And if it was picking up, maybe this Jobs Act is only going to last so long, so that might be something they'd want to consider, is how long that'd be available to use.
Well, it was because I'm looking on SEC.gov about it. So on April 5th, 2012, it was signed in to law by the president. And it just requires the SEC to write rules and issue studies on capital formation, disclosure, and registration requirements.
So it probably gave the SEC flexibility. They could probably discontinue it whenever they pleased them.
I don't know.
Well, if it says it permits them to write rules, then I think that gives them some power.
But really, all this was doing, right, was letting them be able to file or have it looked at by the SEC to see what it would be worth and if it would be worth it without them putting all the money in. Is that
Or without
right?
without actually having to go public. It says being able to file the initial S1 confidentially gives the option to test the possibility of going public without having the numbers out there for the world to see.
See, this is where I would say this would not really have anything to do with the case study. They just threw that in there to kind of make it look more attractive to go public. Because they're like, hey, there was just an act put into place or a law that makes it better for you to buy. I haven't read through the whole thing. It's probably really long, but they keep revising it too.
Yeah. So if it's attractive now, it might not be attractive later if they keep revising it.
Right.
Or it might be more attractive later. So
You never know.
Depends on how many people read through it and catch stuff. I mean, there's so many little things that they can put into it that can make it worse.
Yeah. Well, they definitely need to talk with some legal counsel. It was saying that to sell it to a private party was a less expensive route, and it said that the legal fees for just selling it to a private party was $1 million. So I imagine it's going to be just as much or more if they went with an IPO. So some lawyer I'd imagine that they'd be up on all of that.
Well, yeah, IPO is going to cost them 11 million.
Or
I
more.
might. I did some calculations. It might even be more.
Yeah. Yeah, those are just averages. I mean, that's just in that last
Yeah.
thing, that last
I, uh,
exhibit.
I read an article on Microsoft when they went public. It was around 1986, 1987, and something that I thought was really funny was that all of the directors, including Bill Gates, they were not happy at all going public.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like
there's.
the hassle we had to go and the legal stuff we had to go, and oh man, we just didn't want that.
Well, it
Then
says it in this too. Yeah.
yeah. Then
Mm.
many years after, it says, well, the stock prices, the shares of Microsoft, a lot of people who invested, if they would have held until 2000 and after, they would have made at least $1 billion or something. So they made a lot of profits out of that, but they had to go through a lot of, you know,
There's a lot of hoops.
pain. Yeah,
So, yeah, so is it worth it for a little company like Zoe's? I mean, it's not little, but
yeah.
No, but I think it'd probably be easier to do it whenever it's smaller than whenever it's larger.
hmm There's pros and cons, eh?
Because the larger it gets, the more I don't know, the more people that are involved and the more people that are invested and have a stronger opinion. I feel like it just kind of magnifies all of that.
That
yeah, but
and if a really big company tried to do an IPO, it was saying that if GE or some of these other bigger companies did an IPO, they'd be undervalued, and so maybe although I mean we're not talking about something to that scale, maybe something small like theirs might be overvalued.
Maybe
But
you can get more money out of it now than later.
yeah, maybe if it can catch enough attention. Like
Right.
it said, they were concerned that maybe it's too small, it hasn't reached a critical mass, so that's kind of up in there.
I mean, it's really only in the South.
yeah.
And it's not like people in the South have a bunch of money or even know anything about stocks.
Yeah, we don't have one here in Missouri, so.
Investors might also see that and say, hey, this really has potential for growth. It's had great growth so far, and it's only in so many states, so maybe it's going to really take off.
Yeah. I feel like they've done good with like growing it though because they've kept them all pretty close to each other and it's not like they're throwing like an outlier anywhere. They're just really making sure that it works.
So, but is it too big already, or at that point where they have 98 stores? Is that
No,
right?
I honestly wish they had more stores in more places.
So now is a good time. So they're not too big, but they're not too small.
Right.
Gotcha.
I mean, when you go into the restaurant, you can tell that it's it's something that needs to be in more places.
I find it interesting they have so many in Texas. You would not think that Texas would have
Oh, yeah.
that kind of.
Texas
I
has
mean,
so many huge cities.
Hmm.
well, yeah, but I was just thinking like the Mexican food compared to Mediterranean food.
Well, that's the thing is like when you have an overabundant. This restaurant kind of has an upper hand because whenever you go out, like I'm like, okay, what kind of food do I want tonight? Italian, Mexican, and you're like, well, or my husband's always like, well, they paid for Mexican for lunch today, or I had a steak yesterday, and I'm like, really? I'm like, that like goes out all my options, so it's something completely different on the food scale, and it's not something that's heavy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They might be sick of Mexican.
that's true. Because it's doing good too in New Mexico.
In Alabama and think of
No,
Yeah.
that's Arizona.
Is
There's
it
nothing in New Mexico.
Oh, my bad.
North.
I don't know my geography.
Fine. But there's a ton down in Houston and Austin, which are more of it's a lot more liberal than you would think. and then all the ones like in the middle of Texas, that's Dallas, and that's really where I don't know. That area is just booming right now.
I know my sister lives there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then in Oklahoma, it says there's two. There's only one in Tulsa. That's Tulsa right there in that upper hand corner.
I thought of one of the reasons why they're not expanding northwest. It's because of the distance and expenses and that. They're kind of keeping
Oh
close
yeah,
to each
because
other.
then you have to take everything over the mountains.
Yeah, but that's kind of an interesting thought that I had. But I thought, like in Utah and other states, they would make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Utah, its biggest competitor would probably be Zupas.
Or Cafe Rio.
Um,
I see people all of the stinking
Oh, yeah.
time about Cafe Rio, and we went and tried it, and I was like, eh.
yeah, it's not that good. I mean, it's okay, but
Stay-at-home moms that have nothing else to
yeah, and blog about it.
do. So then, okay, so question number 5 is what is Zoe's worth under each exit option? Did we kind of...
I feel like we've we've touched on
I-
it, we haven't really gone into depth about it.
I've got some numbers on that if you guys.
Oh.
Okay, so let's see here. The average multiples. Did you guys get into the AV? Let's see here. So it talks about how the average multiples paid by the financial sponsors and strategic investors were 8 times and 13 times the EBI TDA.
Mm-hmm.
And the average current valuation of the IPO market was like 21 times trailing EBI TDA. So I've got 21 for an IPO. I've got 13 for a strategic investor, and the financial buyer was like an 8. That's on page 9 on paragraph 5. And yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, if you take those numbers, whoops, let me go back. And so 21 times 11 million was their EBITD, I believe. Does it sound right?
Yeah.
That would put their potential revenue at 231, or the revenue that they bring in from an IPO, 231 million. And I also saw in a chart down below, see in the reading it said 11 million, but in a chart down below it said 10.899 million. So not that there's a huge difference there. It's only 200,000, I guess. But that would put it at 228 valuation. And then it said the IPO, the expected cost was 13 million.
Mm-hmm.
However, if is it likely at let's see, where was this? It's on page 8. Anyway, it also said that it was expected to be between 5 and 7, but up on the higher end, 7% of the revenue that they'd bring in from the IPO. And if you do the calculation there, 7% of the 231 million is 16 million. So I was a little confused with those numbers, because one place it said 13, and then another place it said it closer to 7. And so that would put it at, yeah, so I've got a total revenue from the IPO as being somewhere around 214, 212 million. Now, another thought that I had was if they're expecting the price to be, or the cost of the IPO to be 7%, I reverse engineered that, and that would mean that, and if they expected it to be 13 million, 7%, if you take that 13 million, divide that by 7%, they were expecting, I guess they might have been expecting to have a potential sale of 185 million. So the high, and then with that that 7% off the 13 million. I guess their IPO money could be anywhere between 172 and 214 million. So that's what I came up for an IPO. If they were to do a strategic buyer, I came up with, they said that was at 13 times the EBITDA of 11 or 10.899, and with the expenses of 143 of the potential revenue at 1.5%, it said, because the bank fee was 1.5% of gross purchase price, plus $1 million in legal fees. So so you got a variable and then you got a fixed. The cost to be $3 million. So 143 less the 3, we're looking about 138, 139, almost 140 from a strategic buyer. A financial buyer was an 8 multiple, or an 8 times the EBITDA, with the costs being all the same. No, yeah, 1.5. So yeah, this is the same as this. Just the financial buyer was a smaller EBITDA, whatever multiple. So I found that was about 84, 85 million, and if they were able to sell it to the company that also bought out, what was it? The company that also owned Red Lobster. Anyway, they had a 20 times, and that would bring it up to, with the same expense numbers, 215, 213, somewhere in there. So that's how I came up with some numbers. And the issuing firm value. Now, somewhere else it says that the total enterprise value is the TVEITDA, so that 20 times or 18 times or 13 times or whatever it might be, less net debt. And I couldn't find anywhere where it actually talks about the net debt of the company. So
yeah, I didn't see that anywhere.
yeah, so I don't know if they were looking for that number, then I need the net debt, and I couldn't find it, so I wasn't sure if so I couldn't come up with that. If they're looking for value, but it says, I think the question says net worth. So
Those are some impressive numbers.
So I can go over that again if you have questions, or I can email you the spreadsheet if that helps you out any.
I mean, no, it helps just like looking at everything.
So I saw that the IPO, and if they can make that much, the total revenue of, it looks like the IPO definitely has the highest, they can make the most money out of it, unless they were able to sell it at the 20 times to a financial buyer. They'd probably want to go with an IPO, or hang on to it and grow it, and then they'd have a higher, not a higher multiple, but they'd have a higher number to multiply that by.
I think one of the questions that has to be asked too is, do they want to stay on as a management company or not? Because if they sell to an IPO, they have to stay on, correct? If they sell to a sponsor, they stay on, and if they hold on to it, obviously they stay with it. But the only one that they don't have to stay on and manage it is if they sell to a buyer.
If they sell to a...
Right? Am I right?
Right. Right.
Is
Well, I think it depends on how they structure it. I mean, if it's an IPO, they can hold on to a certain percentage of the company. I mean, they can still be a major holder.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Or they
two
can
kinds of buyers? That says a strategic buyer and a financial buyer, right?
Yeah.
And so if they sell to both of those, they will not have any connection to the company, right?
I think if they stayed on with the one, the
You know, they could even,
sponsor.
the case also talked about how they could come up with some money now by selling a percentage of it, or offering part of the company up for. Where did that go?
Probably in page 9 or something.
I'm not sure. I'd have to dig around for that, but I think there was an option where they could sell part of it. So I mean, they could probably keep part of the. They could probably hold on to it, a certain part of it, with any of them, just depending on how they wrote up the contract.
Yeah.
It says that the private sale option would also provide greater certainty on exit returns by allowing Brentwood to exit its entire stake at once. Something that rarely happened in an IPO. So I think in an IPO they have to hang on to something.
Hmm. Yeah, they could sell all of it, but if they felt that there was growth potential, and if
Right.
they probably want to hold on to some of it, sell it later.
I wonder how much they put into it at the beginning. Does it say that?
Um,
Was I think Zoe was bought from Brentwood, right?
but,
Most probably.
yeah, Brentwood bought it back in the 95 or not 90.
No, they opened their first kitchen in 95.
That's right. That's when their first kitchen was open, and then they bought it like they bought it a little while later.
2006.
Yeah, 2007. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
They had 19 restaurants, and then they bought it around 2007, and then they expanded it.
Okay, where are we with the questions? Were you on the last one? Or?
The end of them.
Yeah.
So I went all over them.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have anything else they want to add or discuss?
Um,
No, I think I'm good.
Me too.
You guys all good with that?
Yeah.
I guess we covered all the different options, right? The
Yeah,
last one is why would anyone sell to the financial buyer instead of an IPO?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you can, Adam, can you send that spreadsheet out to us?
Sure. Yeah.
You did a good job on that. So.
Well, when I first went over the case, and before our first meeting, I hadn't looked as closely at it, so it's kind of nice to have a couple extra days to look into that. But
Yeah.
last week kind of threw me for a loop with that group thing being not being able to get into that until the weekend, and
Yes.
so that kind of pushed me on the last project out, and then I didn't have a lot of time to go over this, so. Yeah.
I think we have a new one next week. Do we?
Well, next week. We'll check.
I think there is another one next week.
I think there's is there one next week?
383, 43.
Yeah, he said there was going to be.
Simulation thing another next week?
Yeah, a simulation, but it doesn't even look like there's going to be a simulation.
I know, I looked through it and there's no mention of it anywhere.
Oh, really?
Well, it didn't say anywhere for the simulation.
You know, the last week we had a simulation, it didn't talk about it.
At all until his notes.
Yeah, which was it's kind of scary. I mean, his notes aren't scary, but the fact that it's not shown anywhere.
Right.
It's unexpected.
And then
I need to put that in there somewhere, but that's totally not his fault because it's just the way the class is put together, and he has to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for it not to work, and that wasn't his fault either, but the fact that there weren't any instructions. And when I first went over it, the case and all the instructions involved, it didn't say anything about it didn't directly about discussing things that were in that. So yeah, that was confusing. He also said that he was going to give us information earlier this week. You guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh well. Just keep an eye on it, I guess.
So if we only have one case, do we want to do it on Tuesday and get it done early in the week, or do you want to do it Thursday
If
and
it
have
involves
extra time?
if it involves a simulation, it might be good if we touch bases earlier, and depending on what the simulation entails. If it's like last time, we might want more time to go over some things, maybe as a group. I think it just depends on the simulation.
If there is one. Yeah, let's plan on meeting on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If that's okay with you guys, and then
Yeah. For the MuMate, right? Was that how you say it, MuMate?
roommate, yeah, whatever it is.
MuMate.
And we can always keep in touch on
If
Monday with emails and kind of back and through and see.
Yeah, and see.
If it entails a lot of number crunching and stuff, I'd prefer to do it later in the week.
Right.
So I have some more time to work on that. You know that the teacher likes seeing Excel files and things sent in to back up your position. So the more time I have to think about it, stew over it, the better.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any. I mean, there could be valuations in it. I just don't know. Oh yeah, valuation of X, IR of Y.
What?
Yeah. That's what it says in the case discussion. Yeah, so we'll just touch base after we look through it.
Oh, another thing, when it comes down to evaluating the company, where'd it go? If you read through the second PDF, evaluating the company not only entailed dealing with the EBITDA times the TEV/EBITDA. That's the comparable multiple times the issuing firm statistics. Anyway, if you go down to the bottom of that it talks about all these different formulas and things that you need to use to calculate the enterprise value, and that was just one of the things, on the company X football field valuation chart here that it talks about.
Oh yeah.
So if anybody comes up with anything else we can compare it to, that might be good.
Okay.
I'll send my sheet your way, and if you guys come up and see anything that can be added to it, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Will do.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You are welcome.
See you guys Tuesday, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, I got another
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
When we go take it not live, when you hit the stop the meeting button,